Doctrine of Christ Session 34，基督論第34講。咁我哋而家咧就開始咗關於神人和好 reconciliation 呢個字呢個教義嘅意思。咁啊，無理呢就先批判咗一個好普遍嘅睇法，就係我哋人同神和好，即係我哋人本來係神嘅敵人，存着敵意，而家咧神將我哋嘅敵意轉化為愛，完全唔啱㗎。咁我哋逐段經文咧去建立無理嗰個論點，就係話完全唔係咁，係神對我哋存着敵意，然後神同我哋和好㗎。第一段經文咧就係馬太福音第5章23到24節，耶穌話：你而家要獻祭嘅時候，諗翻起你嘅弟兄向你有啲不滿，咁你就唔好獻祭，將個祭物就擺喺個祭壇留喺嗰度，你走去同你嘅弟兄和好，然後先翻嚟再獻祭啦。咁無理話我哋要呢兩節經文要有啲嘅考慮嘅，有3方面。第一方面考慮 A，It is not assumed or suggested that the worshipper who is offering his gift at the altar entertains any malice or enmity in his heart against the brother to whom he is to be reconciled。咁呢段經文講緊嗰個獻祭嗰個人呢，佢喺祭壇上獻祭嗰個人呢，一啲都冇假設到或者暗示着呢個獻祭嘅人心中存着敵意，向佢嗰個弟兄存着敵意，即係話耶穌話你要同佢和好，咁一啲都冇講呢個獻祭嘅人呢係向嗰個弟兄呢存有敵意，係佢敵人咯，唔係咁嘅假設，唔係咁嘅暗示嚟㗎。That might be or it might not be， 可能係，可能唔係。But there is no intrusion of such a factor into the situation。但呢度嘅情況呢係冇呢個獻祭嘅人嘅怒氣或者不滿所介入嘅，冇嘅。The factor that is given as the reason for the interruption in the act of worship， 耶穌點解命令呢個人要中斷佢嘅敬拜獻祭嘅行動？咩理由呢？呢個理由裏邊嗰個因素 is simply that there is alienation。好簡單嘅理由就係話嗰度有一個關係嘅隔絕。Something has entered into the relations of the two persons which the person called the brother considers to be a grievance against the person bringing the gift to the altar。有兩個人嘅關係係有咗隔絕，咁嗰個稱為你的弟兄嗰個人呢，就認為呢佢有啲不滿，對呢個獻祭嗰個人係有所不滿㗎。Something which the former considers to be a culpable breach of harmonious relation on the part of the latter。咁呢個弟兄就認為呢個佢有不滿之處呢，就係令到兩者之間和諧關係呢，就係隔絕咗。就係因為呢個獻祭者令到兩人嘅關係隔絕咗㗎，係嗰個弟兄認為佢唔係認為佢覺得有所不滿㗎。B 第2方面考慮 ，It is probably assumed in this case that the worshipper has done something to wrong the other brother, that he is guilty of some misdemeanor or breach of love。呢個情況所假設嘅可能就係話咧，呢個獻祭嘅人呢，可能做咗一啲嘢係得罪咗佢嘅弟兄㗎，即係佢係做咗一啲嘅過失，或者係佢係違背咗愛，有咁樣方面嘅罪或者咁嘅罪名㗎。However, this is not absolutely necessary， 但呢個唔係絕對必須嘅因素。And whether this be true or not， 無論佢有冇做啲咁嘅嘢呢 ，we have to take account of the fact that what the worshipper is commanded to do, he is required to do, irrespective of the justice or injustice of the brother's thought and judgment。我哋必須考慮一個事實，就係耶穌吩咐命令呢個獻祭者要做嘅嘢呢，佢係必須要做㗎，不論對方嗰個弟兄佢點樣諗，佢點樣判斷，不論嗰個弟兄嘅思考同埋判斷係公義或者不公義的，即係話不論嗰個弟兄嘅不滿啊，係就係因為呢個獻祭者有做咗錯事呢，定係冇做錯事呢？耶穌吩咐嗱，你要去同佢和好。C 第3方面嘅考慮 ，What the worshipper is commanded to do is to be reconciled to the brother。獻祭者 耶穌吩咐佢要做嘅就係要與佢弟兄和好。The command be reconciled 與他和好係呢個命令。Does not mean put away your enmity or malice。佢意思當然就唔係話除去你的敵意或者你的惡意啦，即係呢個獻祭者，耶穌冇吩咐呢個獻祭嘅人除去佢嘅敵意啊。He is not assumed to entertain any malice。耶穌冇假設到呢個獻祭的人存有任何敵意㗎。Besides, if that is what he is commanded to do， 仲有噃，耶穌假如真係吩咐呢個獻祭嘅人要除佢嘅敵意，咁樣同佢嘅弟兄和好嘅話呢 ，he would not need to leave the altar to do it。佢唔需要離開祭壇就可以做到啦。He could not be in a better place than in the sanctuary。佢就喺聖所去做呢樣嘢，除敵意係最好嘅地方嚟㗎。If what he is required to do is to repent and put away his ill will， 假如耶穌吩咐佢做嘅就係要悔改，要除去佢嗰種嘅仇恨。What the worshipper is commanded to do is something quite different。但係耶穌命令呢個獻祭者要做嘅嘢呢，唔係呢樣嘢嚟嘅，係完全唔同嘅。He is required to leave the altar to repair to his offended brother。耶穌吩咐佢做嘅就係要離開祭壇，要翻去嗰位覺得自己被得罪咗嗰位嘅弟兄嗰度 ，and then to do something， 然後做一件事嘅。What is it？ 做咩事呢？ It is to remove the ground of estrangement or alienation on the part of the brother。就係咧嗰個弟兄啊，佢有所不滿，佢認為與呢個獻祭者係隔絕咗。呢個獻祭者要做就係要除去呢個弟兄嘅不滿或者隔絕嘅理由 ，remove the ground， put things right with the brother。你要恢復翻與呢個弟兄嘅關係，你要除去佢嗰個隔絕嘅理由 ，so that he will not have any reason for grievance， 好叫佢再冇咩理由心覺得不滿。Do what is necessary，so that there may be resumption of harmonious relations。你要做一啲令到你嘅和諧嘅關係可以恢復。恢復和諧關係需要乜嘢你就做乜嘢。The reconciliation as act consists in the removal of the ground of harmony。所以和好作為一個動作呢，就係指除去嗰個不和諧嘅原因。Remove the ground。B. Reconciliation as result is a resumption of relations of harmony, understanding and peace。和好作為呢個結果呢，就係恢復翻和諧嘅關係，彼此了解同埋和睦嘅關係。嗱，我哋希望各位睇到呢個好精彩一個分析，就係話咧，與你嘅弟兄和好。耶穌呢個命令唔係講緊你對你弟兄有咩仇恨，唔係嘅，係你嘅弟兄有咩仇恨，無論合理不合理，你要同佢和好，除去佢嗰個仇恨啊、怨言啊、不滿嘅理由。It is all important to recognize, therefore。因此，我哋最重要的是，我哋必須要睇到一樣嘢。That what the worshipper takes into account in the act of reconciliation is the grievance entertained by the brother。當呢個獻祭者佢必須要考慮到嘅咧，當佢要去同佢弟兄和好嘅時候，佢必須考慮到嘅就係佢弟兄心裏所懷的不滿。It is the frame of mind of the person to whom he is reconciled that he is to consider, and not any enmity which he himself entertains。佢要考慮嘅唔係佢自己心裏邊有冇懷有敵意，唔係，佢要考慮到嘅係佢嗰個和好嘅對象，個弟兄啊，佢嘅思考，佢嘅心態。獻祭者要考慮係佢弟兄心裏面點樣諗。And if we use the word enmity， 假如我哋用呢個為仇、仇敵呢個字呢，或者敵意嘅字呢 ，it is the enmity on the part of the offended brother that is brought into the forefront of thought and consideration。我哋所思考到嘅，我哋要考慮到嗰個焦點啊。假如我哋用仇敵呢個字嘅話咧，係講緊嗰個認為被得罪咗嗰一個弟兄佢嘅心態。In other words, it is the against entertained by the offended brother。 就係話咧呢個弟兄佢認為佢被得罪咗，佢個被得罪 that the reconciliation has in view。和好嘅動作就考慮呢樣嘢㗎。The reconciliation effects the removal of this against。和好呢個動作就除去呢個弟兄嘅不滿，覺得被得罪咗嘅原因。This passage then provides us with the most instructive lesson regarding the meaning of be reconciled。所以呢段經文呢，俾我哋個好重要嘅教訓，就係與他和好 be reconciled 嘅意思係乜嘢 ？It shows that this expression, in this instance at least, focuses thought and consideration not upon the enmity of the person who is said to be reconciled, but upon the alienation in the mind of the person with whom the reconciliation is made。嘅意思就係話呢，與某某人和好嘅焦點呢，唔係話我存咗敵意，唔係，係對方心裏面有咩不滿，咁我要同對方去和好㗎。And if the meaning which obtains in this passage is that which holds in connection without reconciliation to God to the death of Christ， 咁假如和好係指緊我哋因為基督嘅十字架、基督嘅死與神和好嘅話呢 then what is thrust into the foreground when we are said to be reconciled to God， 咁當我哋講到我哋係與神和好嘅時候呢，要突出嗰個係咩呢 ？is the alienation of God from us， 就係神與我哋嘅隔絕。The holy enmity and a part of God by which we're alienated from Him， 就係神嗰邊、神嗰方嘅聖潔嘅敵意，因為神與我向我哋存有敵意，神以為佢係我哋嘅敵人，因此我哋係與佢隔絕㗎。Doctrine of Christ Session 34 Second Half 基督論第34講嘅下半。因此呢，假如呢一段經文馬太福音第5章23到24節嗰個意思假如將呢個意思同我哋與神和好連同起來呢，咁我哋睇到個重點呢，就係上帝與我哋隔絕，即係上帝與我哋嘅關係，唔係我哋與上帝嘅關係。上帝嗰個嘅聖潔嘅為仇嘅地位。因為上帝與我哋為仇，因此呢，我哋與佢隔絕。因為先係上帝與我哋隔絕，藉著呢個隔絕呢，我哋與佢隔絕㗎。所以神人和好嗰個作為同埋神人和好呢個結果點睇呢？第一，神人和好嗰個作為呢，就係將上帝與我哋隔絕嗰個嘅理由除去。Removal of the ground of God's alienation from us。再嚟一次The reconciliation as action, which would be the removal of the ground of God's alienation from us。耶穌基督叫上帝與我哋和好嘅動作呢，就係除去上帝與我哋隔絕嘅理由。The reconciliation as result。咁神人和好嗰個結果係咩呢？結果would be the harmonious and peaceful relation established because the ground of God's alienation from us had been removed。嘅結果就係因為上帝我哋隔絕嗰個理由已經除去咗，因此就設立咗一種嘅和諧嘅和平嘅關係。At this stage， 好啦，我哋呢度咧就係要作一個結論到到呢個地步嘅時候呢 we could not affirm that this is the precise force of the word reconciliation in reference to our reconciliation with God。 我哋暫時仲唔能夠好確定嘅話，呢個呢就係我哋與神和好個和好嗰個字嘅準確嘅意義。We shall have to derive our doctrine of reconciliation from the passages which deal specifically with the subject。 當我哋要建立我哋嘅神人和好呢個教義嘅時候，我哋仲需要去睇直接討論神與我哋和好嗰啲經文，先可以產生呢個教義㗎。But Matthew 5:23-24， 但係呢段經文馬太福音第5章23到24節 thus show us that in the usage of the New Testament, the word reconcile is used in a sense very different from that which might readily be suggested by an English word。 馬太5章23、24節呢，的確指出當新約聖經用和好呢個字嘅時候呢， 嘅意思呢，好可能同我哋英文、中文呢個和好嘅用法係非常之不同的。Hence, when the New Testament speaks of our being reconciled to God by the death of His Son， 所以當新約聖經話我哋藉著神嘅兒子嘅死與神和好嘅時候 ，or of God's reconciling us to Himself， 或者當新約聖經話上帝與我們和好嘅時候呢 we are not to assume that the concept is to be construed in terms of the removal of our enmity against God。我哋唔可以假設呢個種嘅和好嘅概念就係話呢，我哋與神為敵，呢個為敵，我哋作為神嘅敵人，呢個事實除去咗，唔係咁嘅意思㗎。To say the least, Matthew 5:23-24 suggests a very different direction of thought。馬太福音第5章23、24節，我哋最輕微嘅講法就係話呢，其實佢暗示一個非常唔同嘅思想嘅方向咁。好啦，我呢度呢就講咗一段經文嚇，馬太福音5章23到24節。我哋而家嚟處理第二段嘅經文，就係哥林多前書第7章第11節。嗱，呢度呢係保羅係處理緊離婚嘅問題嘅，特別係當一個姊妹佢嘅丈夫係不信嘅時候，關於離婚嘅一啲嘅指示、一啲嘅吩咐嘅。哥林多前書第7章第11節，我哋從第10節開始讀。保羅話：至於那些已經嫁娶的，我吩咐他們，其實不是我吩咐，乃是主吩咐，說妻子不可離開丈夫。第11節，若是離開了，不可再嫁，或是仍同丈夫和好，同丈夫和好，丈夫也不可離棄妻子。新譯本，如果離開了就不可再嫁，不然就要跟丈夫復合和好，或者係復合 reconciled， be reconciled to the husband， 同丈夫咧係要和好㗎。Referring to the woman separated from her husband, Paul says， 保羅咁樣去論到嗰一位已經同佢嘅丈夫分開咗嗰位嘅女人，佢話 Let her remain unmarried， 讓佢持守着佢呢個單身嘅狀態 ，or be reconciled to her husband， 或者呢就與佢嘅丈夫和好。In this case, to whatever extent subjective enmity on the part of the woman may have entered in to cause the separation that is envisaged, it is obvious that the command to be reconciled to her husband does not consist in putting away her subjective enmity or hostility。喺呢個個案裏邊呢，不論嗰個女人本身係咪有一種內心嘅敵意或者仇恨，心裏所懷呢個嘅敵意呢，係令到雙方分開，不論有冇喺什麼程度之上，女人嘅仇恨令到佢哋分開。撇開呢個唔好講，好明顯嘅事實就係話，當保羅命令呢個女人與她的丈夫和好呢，就肯定就唔係話呢個女人要除去佢心裏邊嗰個嘅敵意或者仇恨。That would not bring the exhortation into effect。咁樣講嘅時候呢，係並冇讓呢個女人真正去遵行保羅嘅吩咐㗎。The reconciliation contemplates rather the termination of the separation。和好呢所講嘅乃係丈夫同妻子分開呢個事實要結束 ，and re-entrance upon proper and harmonious matrimonial relations。呢個分開要結束，然後雙方要再一次進入到一種正確嘅和諧嘅婚姻嘅關係裏邊。The reconciliation regarded as action is the cause to cease the separation, and as effect, the resumption of peaceful marital relations。所以我哋從呢個夫妻和好嘅嗰個動作同埋嗰個結果嚟睇，呢個使夫妻和好嘅動作就係要令到呢個分開嘅事實結束。結果係咩呢？結果就係重新恢復 和諧嘅婚姻關係。我哋而家嚟睇第3段嘅經文，羅馬書11章第15節。羅馬書第11章第15節，我哋又嚟睇點樣嘅和好呢個字係點樣用法嘅。我哋從第13節開始讀，羅馬書11章13到15節。保羅話：我對你們外邦人說這話，因我是外邦人的使徒，所以敬重我的職分。14節，或者可以激動我骨肉之親發憤，好救他們一些人。若他們，即係我骨肉之親，即係猶太人啦。若他們被丟棄，天下就得與上帝和好；他們被收納，即係猶太人被神接納，豈不是死而復生嗎？喺呢度講緊，當猶太人被神丟棄嘅時候，全世界嘅民族就可以與神和好。咁啊，猶太人再一次被上帝接納，咁豈不更加係死而復生呢？即係與神和好嘅個深度廣度更加大呢？咁。Again, in Romans 11:15, we have an instance of the substantive reconciliation. 我哋再一次喺羅馬書11章第15節睇到呢 reconciliation 呢個和好呢個字係一種實質性嘅用法，呢個又係一個例子嚟㗎。我哋講到英文嘅第34頁嘅。For if the casting away of them is the reconciling of the world， 因為假如他們被丟棄，即係猶太人被丟棄，成為世界天下與神和好 ，what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead？ 假如佢哋被接納，會成為點樣呢？咪就好似從死復生咁咯。羅馬書11章15節。It is apparent that the reconciling is contrasted with the casting away。好明顯呢度和好同埋被丟棄兩者喺呢度係對立嘅，係對照嘅。And the casting away is contrasted with the receiving。上帝丟棄猶太人同埋上帝收納佢哋係成對照嘅。The receiving 收納，上帝接納猶太人 is nothing else than the reception of Israel again into divine favor and the blessing of the gospel。 呢個收納無他就係指以色列再一次被接納，進入到上帝嘅恩寵中，亦都係進入到領受福音諸般嘅福氣咁嘅情況裏邊㗎。呢個就係收納嘅意思。The casting away 丟棄係咩意思呢？ Is the rejecting of Israel from the divine favor and gospel grace， 就係以色列被拒絕、被丟棄，不再能享受上帝嘅恩寵同埋福音嘅恩典㗎。The reconciling of the Gentiles, which is upon the occasion of the rejection of Israel。 好啦，咁講到外邦人嘅和好，就係喺以色列被丟棄嗰個情況之下所發生嘅事，就係外邦人與神和好。Is in like manner the receiving of the Gentiles in the divine favor。 同樣嘅呢個和好嘅意思就係話外邦人被接納進入到上帝嘅恩寵中。The reconciliation of the Gentiles, therefore, cannot be construed in terms of the putting away of enmity on the part of the Gentiles。 因此，外邦人與上帝和好，當然就唔係話外邦人呢除去佢哋心中與神嘅敵意。But in terms of the change in God's economy of grace， 外邦人與上帝和好嘅意思就係話上帝整個嘅恩典嘅制度有所改變。When the alienation of the Gentiles came to an end， 外邦人被隔絕呢個事實終止咗。And they were made fellow citizens with the saints and of the household of God。 咁佢哋呢與猶太人一同呢成為神嘅子民，成為聖徒，成為上帝家中的人㗎。參考以弗所書第2章11到22節㗎。 to whatever extent the change from enmity to faith and love in the hearts of the Gentiles when you take into account as effect of the change in God's economy of grace and of judgment。無論喺上帝整個嘅恩典嘅制度或者審判嘅制度裏邊有冇考慮到上帝改變我們人嘅心，使佢哋從向神存敵意嘅心改到信心同埋愛心。無論上帝嗰個制度裏邊有考慮到外邦人嘅心態。We must grace to the Gentiles and judgment upon Israel 就係話上帝向外邦人施恩典，向以色列人施審判，無論有冇考慮到心中有冇向神存敵意。We must regard the reconciliation of the world as consisting in the change of relation which God sustained to the Gentile world。總之天下與上帝和好嘅意思就係話上帝與外邦人世界嘅關係改變咗 ，and a change from alienation to gospel favor and blessing 就係從上帝與佢哋隔絕，到佢哋能夠進入到福音嘅恩寵同埋福氣中。It is a relationship of God to the Gentiles that is brought into the forefront in this use of the word reconciliation。所以喺呢度即係羅馬書11章第15節用呢個和好呢個字嘅時候要突出嘅、要顯出嘅就係上帝同外邦人嘅關係唔係外邦人與上帝關係，係上帝同外邦人嘅關係。好啦，我哋講呢度就講完呢3段經文係處理和好呢個字嘅，仲未處理嗰啲直接講到與神和好嗰啲經文。我哋下一次就講呢樣嘢。